afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining CIO East Africa for our 5th webinar. Today, we are going to be talking about leadership in the digital age. With us, we have Professor Louis Furi from Cape Town, who will walk us through the presentations. We are very excited to continue delivering these webinars to you, and we do look forward to an interactive and interesting session. Just a quick brief on the focus of today's webinar. If you recall, in the last year and a half, CIO East Africa has been talking about the 4th Industrial Revolution. And it looks like the 4th Industrial Revolution has actually hit us with the current pandemic much earlier. It's been accelerated much earlier. And that means we have to change the way we do the things that we do. We have to think differently. We have to execute differently. And we have to lead differently. And now that technology is in the front of everything that we do, we as leaders in our organizations really have to think hard about our leadership style. It's no longer about one individual leading and the rest of the team following. It's about the individual being all-inclusive with their leadership style. So where does the rest of your team play a role? Where do they plug in? Do you listen to them? Where does technology fit in? How much do you trust technology? And how much are we evangelizing technology within our organization so that we can be successful? So without much further ado, I'd like to introduce Professor Louis Furi to go ahead and walk us through the presentation. As usual, some housekeeping. Please post your questions in the Q&A window, and then we will take your questions after the formal presentation. Thank you very much. Welcome, Professor Louis.
Good afternoon to all of you that are part of this webinar. It is really a privilege to present to you, and it's also a privilege to welcome you into my office at home, because like you, I'm also locked up at home in isolation, and it is really a privilege to have you here in South Africa for the moment. Yes, I think Laura has said most of it already, the core of what it is about, the leadership in this new digital era that we all experience and that we are part of. Whether we like it or not, we are part of it. So that is what I will be speaking about. Now, what you will see, since you also referred to the 4th Industrial Revolution, but you will see that this 4th Industrial Revolution, and because of the speed at which it is happening, created a brave new world of disruption, digital disruption. And the problem is not the revolution, but the problem for us as leaders and for our businesses, of course, is the disruption. And I will talk more about that a little bit later. But let's just quickly say, what is an industrial revolution? We talk a lot about the 4th Industrial Revolution, but what is it? When there's a revolution, industrial revolution, there are a few major changes. And the first you will always see in industry and economy, there are major changes. The way we work, whether you work on a farm and later when you work in a factory, and now that we work from home virtually, the way that we buy things, whether it's physically or later on virtually, the way that we sell things with e-commerce, that is what the revolution is all about, the Industrial Revolution. It changes our industry, it changes our economy. It changes the transportation, how we transport things. If you just think of 3D printing, how it changed the whole idea that you print things on location and you don't transport it anymore. How transport changes from ox wagons and donkey carts and horse carts right through to trains and high-speed planes. It changes society, the social structures of society, the way we live. We lived in rural areas, then we became, all people became very much urbanized, and we started to live in cities. So an industrial revolution always has a major impact on how we live, how we do things, how we do business, and of course, I would like to say how we lead. I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but just to show you quickly from the first industrial revolution to the 4th, where we are now, how quickly things changed. And there's an acceleration in the innovation. And what is important, there's also an acceleration of the velocity of disruption. Disruption is happening faster and faster, and businesses are going out of business faster and faster. So we started with the first industrial revolution where steam, we discovered steam and we built machines that work with steam. Later on, we built trains that could run with steam, and it was the whole idea of mechanization. Then came the second industrial revolution, electricity and everything that came with it. We could work through night, we can work in the dark, we can do so much more. And we started to have mass production. Assembly lines became common. And then came electronics and computing and transistors and all the wonderful stuff that I love so much in the third industrial revolution. And we started with computers, and we started to automate. And then the fourth industrial revolution. And now it's interesting how many new technologies are playing a role in this, whether it's 3D or biotechnology or robotics or artificial intelligence or autonomous vehicles, nanotechnology. There's so much, quantum computing. And all of these things, there's a confluence of all these technologies. And that's why we call it, and there's a lot of intelligence built into all of it. And that is why we call this the time of intelligence. It's the revolution of intelligence. Yeah, not human intelligence, but in this case, machine intelligence. But let me dwell a little bit more on that. This age of intelligentization, some people call it. It's not the most intelligent word, I think, but still, people use it. So what is happening is that you will see that intelligence is now suddenly embedded into everything. Whether we speak about all the new technologies, and if you start to talk about the Internet of Things, more and more devices have intelligence built into that. They are all connected to broadband. 5G brings this high-speed broadband to us. Yes, although some people now have some concerns and conspiracy theories about 5G, but don't believe it. And big data, the next webinar is about big data. But all of these things now play together, and there's a lot of intelligence built into it. But enough said about that. I wanted to show you a video, but unfortunately on this platform, a video can't work about the exponential change, but you have to believe me, it is really exponential. And it is really a profound revolution that is taking place, and it will fundamentally alter the way, change the way in which we live and do business and work, and in which we lead our organizations. And why is this so? Because you will see there are different technologies, physical, digital, biological worlds. All of these are now suddenly converging, are flowing together to create this huge disruption that we experience. And I can tell you a lot about all these wonderful things. It would be that, but that is a webinar on its own. The Internet of Things, how things are becoming connected, and how suddenly, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in your supply chain, or whether it's in your factory, big data and analytics, how that is changing the work. Even with COVID-19, how we start to manage the curve just with big data and analytics. Artificial intelligence, how decisions are now being made, intelligent decisions by machines and not by humans anymore. Robotics, the photo there is of Sophia, a very intelligent robot that addressed the United Nations, that was in Rwanda last year. Maybe some of you were there to attend it. She's intelligent, she can have a conversation, and when, yes, I would like to say, when a reporter tried to kiss her on the cheek, she slapped him. So even emotions, she can cry, she can do many things. Self-driving cars, you know how that is changing the industry, and especially in some countries already truck drivers. It's between major depots, you will find that they have automated trucks. And think about how that will disrupt the taxi industry. Uber, all of them. Uber is experimenting with self-driving cars. 3D printers, look at these huge HP printers, not the not the small one that you will have on your desk, but how that will change what we call additive manufacturing. I don't have to import something anymore. I print it wherever I am. Broadband, the high speed, coming with 5G, nanotechnology, all the wonderful new in the medical world and otherwise with nanobots, quantum computing, making the new generation of computers that are so incredibly fast and powerful, are being used by most of the airline industries and so forth. Virtual reality and augmented reality and bioengineering, oh, the wonderful world of, yes, even designer babies like we saw in China, the twins that were born, many things. And I can continue with this. But what I want to say to you, it is a real, incredible revolution. And it is a lot of disruption, because that is the result of the fourth industrial revolution, digital disruption. And don't worry, I'll get to leadership now. This disruption is really, because of this technology, is really on changing our lives on many fronts. It is changing our business models. It's changing our value proposition, your organization's value proposition. That it is being changed as we speak. Let me give you a few examples. Maybe some of you will remember Polaroid. If you look at the picture on the left, and Kodak. Oh, Kodak. Everybody used Kodak films, and we had wonderful SLR cameras. And Thomas Cook, what happened to them? They disappeared. All of them disappeared. Why? They became extinct because they didn't adapt to the new demands. Kodak never saw that we are going to digital photo and digital photography, and they thought that they're still going to sell films and they still have shops where you process films. No, it's gone forever. Thomas Cook still thought that people are looking in brochures, and then in the brochure they will order a holiday, and they went bankrupt. This is digital disruption. Just think of Airbnb, ladies and gentlemen. Airbnb is the world's largest accommodation provider. But they have zero estate, nothing. They don't own anything. Uber is the world's largest taxi company, but they don't own any vehicles. Alibaba, you know that was started by in China, is the world's most valuable retailer, one of the largest, and has zero inventory, nothing. And Facebook is the world's largest and most popular media owner, and they have no content of their own. This is what we call disruptive technologies. It changed the business forever. And now, of course, with COVID-19, all these online shops is suddenly realizing the value of continuing business even when people can't visit the shops. Just think of voice over IP, Skype, WhatsApp, Telegram, so many of these others. What happened to the cell phone companies and telecom companies with their phone calls? It almost is non-existent, because people speak over WhatsApp or other voice over IP technology. Huge impact on the companies. Disruptive. Think about the music industry. Napster was the first that made music available, and many subscription services and download services. What happened? And there's a graph there to show you how it changed. But it was the income from the music industry is now a fraction of what it used to be because of disruption. And one has to be careful, because disruption is part of our life. It's the main reason, digital disruption is the main reason why just over half the Fortune 500 companies have disappeared. Now, Fortune 500 companies are the most successful elite companies in the United States, and half of them, just over half, disappeared since the year 2000. That's only 20 years. Digital disruption has just begun, and that's my problem. The average, this Foster said, the average lifespan of a Standard & Poor company, S&P company, dropped from 67 years in the 1920s to 15 years today. Companies don't last. Why? Because they can't adapt. They are like dinosaurs. If you don't adapt, you become extinct. Having said that, let us talk a little bit about the science and the art of leading an organization in the digital era. The one thing that I can tell you when we talk about leadership, and we've talked about the disruption and the major impact of the fourth industrial revolution, but you have and I have to deal with it. And do you know what? It's complex. I think you know that. It's challenging. And of course, it demands a new type of leadership. And Laura said that already in her introduction. Now, what does this leadership look like? Because this paradigm shift that is happening of disruptive change, that is the norm. It's not something that is going away. It's not, in fact, as I said to you in the beginning, it's happening faster and faster. Disruption is now happening in a shorter time span, and it will become shorter and shorter. It's the norm, and we have to lead in this time. So let me first say something about the environment of this digital era in which we have to lead. The one thing is that exponential growth, we see that in complexity. It's becoming more and more complex. It's not easy to be a leader in this era. And there's an enormous demand on agility. We have to act fast. New ways to organize and solve our problems. The old ways is not working anymore. We have to think. We have to be creative. We have to be innovative. Yes, in organizations and leadership is much less hierarchical, much flatter organizations. Projects are agile. We speak about agile teams, continuous improvement, fast to change, easy to change. We talk about time to market. This is time where we need speed. And of course, performance is really important. Now, in the digital era, at a time of disruption, I would like to say we need leaders that can build an innovative and a creative culture. In this, if we say that this era in which we live is an era of disruption, how do we lead? By being innovative and creative. But not only you yourself, you have to create that culture, innovative and creative culture. Sir Ken Robinson from the UK said, the role of a creative leader is not to have all the ideas, but to create a culture in which everyone can have ideas and feels valued. You don't have to have all the solutions. You don't have to have all the answers. You and I have to create the culture so that other people can have the great ideas, that other people can be creative and innovative. If I look at the imperative for innovation, and I'm talking about creativity and innovation now as part of this leadership, think of the major digital disruptions, the Internet of Things, the smart machines, intelligent machines, highly intelligent robots part that we will share our work with robots, 3D additive printing, the increasing speed, agile development, lean startups, crowdfunding becoming popular, and how important digital talent is becoming. Employee engagement, it's so important who you appoint nowadays in this new environment. Crowdsourcing, balancing the whole balance between human and machine, and what the contribution is of each. And having said that, it means that today what is imperative is that we reimagine our organizations. We have to reimagine our whole industry sometimes. So you have to go and sit and think totally new about your organization. Yes, it's maybe still working and it's still doing great, but you have to reimagine it because tomorrow may be the end of it. You have to make experimentation, or let me say innovation or creativity, your strategy. And the third one, innovation, must be embedded in the culture of your organization. It must be part to the core of your organization. So a few things about promoting creative thinking, and I've got some examples here as well. So let's talk about the techniques. One of it is you have to set stretch goals. I always think of the goal that people had in the 60s in the United States, NASA had, when they said a man on the moon by the year 2000. It was long before for then that they had a man on the moon. Stretch goals. Shorten the cycle time from examples from 2 hours to 2 minutes. That's a stretch goal. Why does it need to take so long to make a decision or to do something? Explore what if scenarios with the new technology. What if all our IT was cloud first? What if we embed facial recognition in every system that we have? Add, remove, or invert a constraint or assumption. Let us find a new solution that costs, for instance, less than $20 or that delivers benefits in under 6 months. Let's think anew. Or cannibalize your organization. Think from a different perspective. How would a private startup reinvent my organization? If I was now going to sell my organization, somebody takes it over, how will they change it? That would be an interesting question to ask government organizations. Consider adjacencies and connections, that important relationships with stakeholders. And I need to balance all these needs. How can I use that strategically? Inhabit a different world. Have a look at people and in their natural habitat. Look at the key stories of the day, how people and users experience it. And then with your people inside your organization, play games. Engage the senses of people. There's a lot to be said for gamification, but gamify idea generation and selection with a virtual currency, for instance. Build a model of a process with cardboard and strings or whatever you have. Just do it in a different way. That is the beginning of leadership. So what are 4 focus areas, foci for leadership in the digital area or era? The first one is, of course, you need to create a compass. That is your mission and your identity. And that must be central to everything you do, to everything you say, to everything you proclaim. You must engage people in meaningful ways around your mission. Make them part of it. And everybody for whom structure is so important, remember, it's just a holding space. I can remember my professor when I was younger said, structure follows strategy. Yes, I think you know that. But for many people, structure is so important. It's not. Your mission and your identity. And then you must cultivate a community. Attend to relationships, internal relationships with your staff, with the people, your creative people working for you, your innovative people, externally with all the stakeholders, whether it's your extended value network, not just a chain, but a network, or whether it is any stakeholder in your organization. Then generate momentum. You as a leader must set the direction in this complex time. You must have a vision, at least a picture of the future. You must know where we are heading. You must lead people. You must manage the information flow in your organization. You must make decisions in a strategic way. And you must share leadership with the people around you. Lastly, the 4th one is you must create a learning community. That is where we become agile. We become experimenters. There are companies like 3M where people have a 1 day off. At my last university where I was the Deputy Vice Chancellor in Cape Town, I gave people 1 day off a week and say, you're at work, but you work on how we can improve things, innovative. That is where the learning comes in. So what am I talking about? Maybe some of you realize it. I'm talking about transformational leadership. That's what we need. And transformational leadership is about transforming your organization. Or let me say it better, transforming your team. And that is done by motivating and enhancing the people working for you. You need, well, maybe to be honest, you can't motivate a person, maybe I need to say it differently, but to create the right motivating culture environment for people, lifting their morale, making them part of it all, taking them with you on your journey towards your vision. It's the kind of leadership where you will inspire others to become better members of the team, but also better individuals. That is important. I will speak about the model on the right just now when we touch on it. Briefly, if you read, and it's not that new, it was already formulated by Bass in 1985, so it's not a new model, but we have rediscovered it in this era, complex era, where things are changing very fast. And this is transformational leadership. And there are 4 components. The first one is intellectual stimulation, where we must encourage critical thinking, creativity, innovation. You've heard it, you hear it again from me. Yeah, you don't have to know all the answers. You just need to know how to answer the right questions. Ask the questions. Encourage people to think creatively. Individualized consideration, where you pay attention to the development needs, the skills needed, the people and their needs working for you. Inspirational motivation, where you arouse a team spirit and where you have a compelling vision that will get all the people within your organization aligned and take them with you. And then the last one, idealized influence, where you become the role model for your staff. You don't tell them what to do, you show them what to do. They emulate you, that you help them to internalize it yourself and then demonstrate it. Let us quickly dwell on each of these a little bit more. The first one, intellectual stimulation. I've got a brain there doing some exercise. Do you know what we need to do? There are so many old assumptions. No, we cannot improve this. No, this is how we've done it for many years. Now, this is how it should be done. Nonsense. Some people say you can't teach an old dog tricks. That's an insult to an old dog. No. Challenge the assumptions. Incite new perspectives. Ask for new inventive ways of solving things and doing things. Encourage your people to think creatively to address both current and future problems. The next one, individualized consideration, is that you must create a supportive environment for your followers. They must be able to experiment in a safe environment. You must listen to their needs. You must advise. You must coach. You must teach. You must help. You must assist. You create this environment. The next one is inspirational motivation, where you have an attractive vision. And what you do is you provide encouragement and optimism and purpose for the people. To be inspired is great, but to inspire is incredible, it is said. Then idealized influence. I've said that this is where you become the role model. You are the person that they can copy in the team. You display confidence and passion yourself. You emphasize important personal values and you show how it is aligned with that of the organization. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. If there's a narrow bridge, you walk across it first to show how it is done. That is leadership in the digital era. And here I've summarized some of the requirements. You can have a look at it in detail later, but the things that are needed for you in this digital era is intuition. You must have a good feeling of what is going on. Patience sometimes. Empathy, understanding other people, putting yourselves in their shoes. Long-term planning. Do and think many things at the same time, almost like multitasking. Consensus seeking is not authoritarian, it's not hierarchical, it's much more consensus seeking. Flexibility, agile, cooperation, good relationships, talent with words, yes, you need to be a good communicator, emotional sensitivity, and the talent to read non-verbal clues. Yes, it's easy. People can say something, but their body language is telling you something else. You need to be able to read it. Interactive, collaborative leadership. where your people are with you, leading with you. Some people speak about leading from behind. Yes, this is leading as in by example. You are an authentic leader yourself and leading them. I had a video clip here of how to thrive in the digital era, but that is for another day. So a few conclusions. There you can see I'm sitting there myself, and I have a deep thought about how to solve this problem now of this big egg. So a few conclusions. The first is that I've said to you today the pace of technological change and thereby the pace of disruption is accelerating. No doubt about that. If you look over the years, look at the airlines, it took 68 years to gain 50 million users. ATMs, 18 years. Television, 22 years. Computers, 14 years. And Facebook, 3 years. Twitter, 2 years. Pokemon Go, it's also history now, 19 days. It's increasing. It's becoming faster. It's incredible. So smart technology is progressing at an unprecedented pace. And this age of intelligentization will keep on disrupting our organizations. It will disrupt your organization at one time or another. It will happen. Whether it's a university, whether it's government, whether it's the way it's in a private business, whatever, or an NGO, it doesn't matter. You have to think about it. And the important question is, do we have the ability to adapt? Can you adapt? Are you prepared? That is the question. In his book, and it's a very interesting book to read by Clayton Christensen, he wrote about the innovator's dilemma, and he said, the solution to disruptive technologies is people that learn to understand and harness the principles of technological change. Do you understand the principles of technological change? Because if you do, you are better equipped to change. You are better equipped to deal with disruption. You are better equipped to survive. So, what I want to tell you, after having said this all today, is what is needed is a rebooting of the C-suite agenda. In short, that means changing of mindset. Becoming a business that will survive the fourth industrial revolution is not about technologies only. It's not just to understand all these complex technologies. It's not only about changing the business models. You know what? Fundamentally, it's about changing mindsets. It's about new transformational leadership. And I have 3 questions for you as leaders and for executive teams. The first one, are you managing? Just managing? Or are you leading in this disruptive era? And the second one is, are you disrupted or are you disrupting? Very important. And lastly, are you delivering just a percentage, an incremental percentage? Or are you delivering exponentially? Let us look at that briefly, each of them, before I conclude. Are we managing or leading? The first question I have for you. Leaders, of course, have to be curious. We have to embrace challenges, taking responsibility for problems and for our share of a problem, and spurring this whole quest for solutions and answers and innovative, creative solutions. We take the lead. We must be curious. We are walking in the front. So my questions for you, and I hope you can answer it by yourself. Are we solving a global challenge through our core business? Or are your goals ambitious enough? Or are you just carry on business as usual? Or are you busy with a global challenge? Think of how many organizations step up to the plate in this COVID-19 crisis at the moment. It was interesting. A racing team like Ferrari F1 is now suddenly making ventilators. Have you heard that before? Incredible. Are you solving a global challenge? Yes or no? What are your blind spots? Are you missing some opportunities because of your frame of reference that doesn't allow you to see it? You are still thinking within the box. Are you largely focused on symptom management? Or do you seek to address the root causes? Do you go deeper and say, what is the root cause for what's happening in my business, my organization? The second question is, are you disrupted? Are you disrupting? Are you being disrupted or are you disrupted? Are you passive or are you part of it? Leaders will have to move beyond early defensive postures. We have to embrace disruption as a core element of our strategy. It is not just that that is happening so automatically often. We are defensive. Oh my goodness, Kodak was like that. We have to protect our business now. Then you become disrupted and you lose your business. It must be part of your strategy. You must embrace disruption. That is part of existence today. That's part of this new drive of technology where we are. So my questions to you are, where is the disruption happening or likely to happen in your sector or in contiguous sectors? Are there elements of your existing core business that we need to let go in order to disrupt ourselves? You can disrupt yourself. You let go of certain things that are becoming outdated, that you are still clinging to, holding on to. Do we have structures in place for tapping into new ideas, both within and outside the organization? We need to get new ideas. We need to find creative ideas. And the last one that I have for you is, are we delivering just a small percentage or an exponential percentage, I could say? Because I want to tell you that incremental improvement remains important. Yes, we have to improve on a continuous basis, but it's not sufficient anymore because life is changing too fast. Technology is changing too fast. The world is changing too fast. To address emerging threats and opportunities, we need exponential change, exponential improvement. Do we have a solutions and culture? Do we have a culture that inspires employees to think exponentially? Or do we still have a culture where they only do small changes? What aspects of our business are most likely to benefit from an exponential approach? And do we have teams dedicated to identify and experiment with exponential approaches? We need to set aside people to be creative and to experiment and to think about the way forward. Remember, the world is not changed by your opinions. The world is not changed by your speeches. The world is not changed by all the popular sayings you may have in management meetings. The world is changed and your business is changed by your example. Only your example. And then people will follow. If you're an authentic leader, transformational leader, people will follow. I had a very nice clip here that I wanted to show you. And this clip will just put one question to you. Do you have the guts to lead? Because do you know what? In this disruptive era, this very complex era, it takes guts. You need guts. And if you want to be a leader in this time, you will have to take the first steps. You will have to do something about it. You will have to set the example. And with that, I say thank you for your attention. Wish I could see your faces. It's always easier to see your faces and to see if you are with me or not. But thank you very much for listening. On the slides, you will see I've got some extra slides. I hope you can download it. There are some additional slides where I've got some disruptive changes showing you, some more videos just to show you, but that's not important for the moment. It's just some extra slides for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your interesting presentation. I actually have 3 pages of notes from your content. And what has stood out for me is, do I have the guts to lead? We shall answer that question after I go through the presentation again. Just a quick recap on some of the things you've talked about. I love the fact that we're talking about disruption, and this is digital disruption in today's age. There's a lot of innovation that's going on across the globe, and especially from an African perspective and more so East African perspective, a lot of innovation going on. But the thing is, Are we missing out on opportunities? Is the innovation relevant? Does the innovation have the guts? What is the impact of the innovation? And now that we're in a pandemic, we really need to start thinking about some of the things that we are innovating around. I remember reading an article, was it yesterday or the day before, where somebody was talking about many years back, first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution, they're talking about people used to create things for communities, create things that impact the society. But today, we are creating things for our own selfish needs. We are in a pandemic now. What are the things we're going to create that are going to save us as the globe, as human beings, that is going to have impact, that is going to help your neighbor? And those are some of the things that we need to think about as we're running our organizations and being leaders. Just talking about how the company that is now creating ventilators, that is now thinking about things that will help the current pandemic. So do we have the guts to lead? Do we have the guts to talk about it? Do we have the guts to approach our boards and our senior managements to tell them we need to change the way we are doing things today and now, given what's going on? So I can see a few questions in the Q&A window. If you could just jump in there and answer the questions as they are written out there. Please, if you have any further questions, drop your questions in the Q&A window so that Prof can answer them, and we can close off hopefully in the next 15 minutes. Thank you.